Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our City Council budget session. We'll go ahead and get started. Connie, could you please call the roll?
Cheatham.
Here.
Lurie.
Here.
Mangum.
Here.
Mansfield.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
Paulson.
Here.
Ladd.
Here. Thank you. Agenda item 2 is our police department. Roger Scheid, Police Chief, will give a presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At the table, I have my Assistant Chief, Major Eric Anderson, with me, who assists with budget development and managing the police department. So the first slide is our personnel, and I'm going to have to let you know that 147 number is wrong. We're at 148, and the reason we're at 148 is because I forgot to add me. I don't count in the personnel.
You get paid?
And I'm hoping you don't fix the glitch, right? I hope the Bobs didn't meet and the glitch didn't get fixed, but I failed to add myself. I am in the non-exempt number there, and but I'm not in the total personnel because technically I don't count towards the sworn personnel. So that should be 148. That's my fault. And the reason the exempt employees went from 14 to 13 is because of a federal law that changed where Janae Perman, who's our training coordinator, is now an hourly employee, and that was worked out with HR. That was just something that happened within the last, month, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it takes effect until July.
Yeah, July, when the new laws come into place. So any questions on our staffing? As the city grows, and we worked with Brent on this as there's some triggering events that we're going to need to add personnel as the city grows with the annexation, and those are things that we will work with council at and keep you abreast of. The next slides are salaries and benefits. These are all numbers that were provided from us from finance and HR, so that's our personnel. We're a very personnel-heavy department. We're a service-oriented department. We're a full-service police department where many police agencies across the country have gone to. We don't respond to burglaries or property crimes. You're kind of on your own. We don't do that. We offer services to our community across the board. And in fact, right now, I just came from a youth leadership academy that we're running for our youth. We do a lot of things in our community. So that's where those salaries and benefits go to the men and women out on the street, behind the scenes in the dispatch center, the ordinance enforcement officers, the records clerks, and all of our non-sworn personnel that do an amazing job for the city of Pocatello in successfully completing our mission. The next slide is the personnel costs once again, and our operational costs. Our operational costs are going up 3%. Some of the things that I'd like to highlight here. Last year we responded to 24,472 calls for service. That doesn't include traffic stops or other field activity like field interviews or other events that don't create a incident report. We issued 4,564 traffic citations. That doesn't, we give warnings too, so that's not inclusive to the stops that we made. Dispatch took just under 20,000 911 calls and just under 100,000 non-emergency calls. They are very busy in there. They handle all the police, fire, and ambulance. They've maintained their ACE certification. That's through the Accredited Center of Excellence, through the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch. We continue to remain the only ACE certified dispatch center in the state and in the region, because there's only one in Salt Lake, none in Wyoming, and none in Montana. So we're one of the only ones in the area. The reason some of our personnel, our operational maintenance is increasing is we want to maintain our training. Through ICRIMP, we saved $53,018 because we're ICOPA accredited, and we're going to be reaccredited next year. And part of that is our high liability training that we do.
Chief, we've got a question.
Yeah.
What does A certified mean?
ACE is so it's through the International Academies of Emergency Medical Dispatch. So they have to meet a certain level in the mid 90 to or 90% or higher in order to maintain that certification. So when somebody calls in with a medical emergency, they have to meet certain thresholds. And what that means is that we're one of the highest level dispatch centers for that in the world. I mean, this is a worldwide organization.
For patient care.
Yes.
It's all about patient care.
Okay, thank you.
And they get evaluated, I believe, what is it, once a quarter?
Rick?
Why the big jump, Chief, in interfund? It went down last year. This year it's up over $400,000. That surprises me.
It's a good question, Gene.
So again, as we're trying to rebalance, right? And on the insurance side, even though most of this comes in through the non-departmental, clearly fire and police are one of the biggest liabilities that we have as a city. And so it's just balancing these formulas that I'm trying to get balanced out, and it's flows through how it does.
Based on?
Well, so again, I'll use the property, the ICRIMP to start with. So everybody that has property, right, vehicles, physical property, has a certain weighting. It's like 20% of the premium that goes into that. Then there is your actual payout claims, and that's using a geometrical average, which means it's more front-end weighted. That's 30%. And then 50% is the number of employees you have. And so by doing that formula, it just falls out so that, number one, it's understandable. And it's, again, I'm not trying to criticize what was done in the past, because it was done, I think, fairly, but we're just trying to update it, and that's part of it. But if you want to come sit down with me, I'd be happy to go over it with you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mansfield.
Gene, did you apply this new formula only to increases in our tax or in our insurance costs, or to the bulk of it?
To everything. Go ahead.
Does that mean then that there's a possibility that this increase is offset partially from other departments having a small decrease in their insurance costs?
Yes.
So there is an increase in insurance, obviously, but it isn't necessarily a $400,000 increase to police. It is offset by some other departments.
Right. And again, we still may do some adjustments
Sure.
as we're trying to get this nailed down. It's going to take us a couple of years to get this right. I mean, it's not simple.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So a few of the other things that on our operations, this year we've really shifted some things in our budget to address cell phone forensics. We were outsourcing our cell phones to Idaho Falls Police Department. They were charging $200 a cell phone. They have since stopped that, and we saw that this wasn't a sustainable model, and we want to keep that chain of custody with us. So we stopped doing that, and we purchased our own, what's called a Cellbrite machine. It allows us to do some forensic capabilities with the cell phone. And as we're knowing now, this is the crux of everything now on investigations. We're able to download information. We get search warrants, and we're able to download what they call them a dump of information off the cell phone, and that has been mission critical in several of our recent investigations, including the recent street crimes investigation with the Asian massage parlor that was in the news. The cell phone had vital evidence on it, and so Cellbrite Gray Key is another program that we needed to purchase, because Cellbrite is good except for some stuff on iPhone. Gray Key's really good on iPhone, but not really good on Android. So, and we are working right now on some partnerships with Idaho Falls Police to enhance those capabilities and partner with them. But we are now, when we get a phone from other agencies, we are charging the $200 a cell phone, so to recoup some of those costs. And then the dongles that go with them, they're not cheap. So it's our maintenance fees have gone up on some of our computer stuff like ILETs, which we have to run people 27s, 29s, which is our warrants and driver's checks and registration checks on vehicles. CopLink, Spillman, Frontline, which is our policies and standards, Lexipol, which is our policy manual, all those things, the maintenance agreements go up on those every year. And of course, our Spillman computer system, which is the backbone of our computer aided dispatch system.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So do those things fall under the operations maintenance or on the next slide under subscriptions and forensics?
So those are all under operations and maintenance. The next slide is where those things are broken. We broke those down a little bit more because those are the bigger items. So those subscriptions and forensics are the things that I just talked about. Those things are all in that. All those items are in that $1,816,130. So the reason that you see the big jump in subscriptions and forensics are because of the Cellbrite, the Gray Key, the dongles, ammunition costs, as well as I'm sure you know have gone up a little bit. Our firearms, that's some of the reasons there. We've switched to optics on all of our firearms for higher accuracy. So those are just some costs that go along with that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
But then they're again broken out under the CapEx and equipment.
Yeah, all of those are within this $1 million here. This was just
Right.
these are our big ticket items.
Okay.
And we constantly work with fleet to maintain our vehicles. Some of the ones that we were using as fleet vehicles when we started car per officer, we're trying to get rid of those because those are the ones that were hot seated. We're trying to rotate those out and get to a point where it's sustainable with newer vehicles that are going to last a very long time. The ones we got under the last recent years, they are still well within the low miles and they're being maintained really well. It's the ones that we had prior to that were being hot seated. And what I mean by that is they were being driven 24/7, 365.
Mr. Mayor. Addressing vehicles, are you still having a problem with delivery of pursuit-rated vehicles?
So you bring up the pursuit rated, and we just met with the Idaho Falls Police Department, and they had attended a fleet conference, and the companies are actually going away from the term pursuit. What happened was Ford pretty much shut down everything, and they put all their ducats into the EV market, and they stopped pumping those out. Now they're starting to again, but they're changing it from pursuit to performance rated models. And the performance rated model that's coming out is the ST. So that's what we're starting to look at is the Explorer ST and some other vehicles as they produce them. So we just got to navigate with what the market has for us. And the ST has the higher brakes, the beefed up brakes, the suspension, the EcoBoost engine in it, better coolant and coolant system.
Thank you.
Councilman Nichols.
Yes.
So what do you consider high mileage? When is a vehicle sort of worn out?
So we just rotated a vehicle out about 160,000 miles. Was that Sergeant Jackson's?
It's on 150.
Yeah, and how long does it take you to get there? How many years?
Well, with the older vehicles that we had that were hot seated were quicker. Some of the vehicles that we have now, we're projecting 10 to 12 years on per vehicle. When those ones that were recently purchased and issued within the last 4 years.
I know our goal is 10.
10, okay.
That's our goal.
Yeah, our goal is 10, but if we can get 12 out of them.
Perfect, thank you.
But 160,000 is not the usual, though, is it?
No.
So what is the number what's that magic number we're looking at in 10 years? Not 160.
About 100.
About 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anywhere between 90 to 100 is where you want to rotate a patrol vehicle out. And then when we do that, we rotate those out to like our support services and our school resource officers. So they may drive them to 120 or 130 because they're a little less demand because of the the nature of their job. And then we then take those vehicles and then we offer them to anybody else in the city. I know somebody we were just worked with Skylar on a vehicle that he needed that was a little higher mileage, but wasn't going to put the wear and tear on it. So we do a good job of recycling them and making sure that other city departments get first dibs.
Council President?
I was just wondering what we're looking at now in terms of time to get vehicles when we order new ones. Has that improved at all, or?
Well, we're hoping to meet with Tom and his crew for the FY25 orders in the next, I would say July, August, and we'll see then. It's been hard in the past, but hopefully they're catching up and we're gonna try to order 4 of those STs for FY25. I'm hoping by this time next year we'll have those.
Okay.
So,
Councilmember Mangan?
The performance-rated vehicles, are we able to do any of that manufacturing in-house?
So we've worked with Fleet. There's a few things that they can do. Like the pit bumpers, they're manufacturing. Tom's got a really cool machine over there, and we're going to take these trucks that we just got, and he's going to beef up the front. We can add some of the beefier brakes and do some aftermarket things working with Fleet.
and we try to do a bulletproof plate in the driver's seat. And these trucks that we were able to find, they're used trucks. And last I had talked to Tom, he was going to try to come up with something to put a plate in those. So they can do a lot of things over there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I want to follow up on that. You're putting a plate in the seat or in the door?
In the door. It's in the door.
It's in the door.
It's in the door, in the driver's side door.
Good.
Makes it a little heavier, but it's good for stopping bullets. So
Probably should be in the seat too.
Any other questions? Super. Thank you,
Can I
Chief.
actually ask one real fast?
Yes.
This is back to the personnel side. Do you know what our officers per capita number is?
yeah, we're 1.7 officers per 1,000.
Okay.
Which it puts us right at the Idaho average. The national average floats between 2.1 and 2.4 thousand according to the FBI statistics. But we're as far as officers per 1,000, we're right where we need to be. Now, if this growth happens down south, as about 1,000 people, we would need one officer. Sure. Or if a complex were to come in like a Walmart, or my wife's really pushing for a super Target, that would require probably 4 officers, because 2 for the day shift, 2 for the swing shift. But then we would know ahead of time that they were coming. It takes time to build, and then we could sit down and do some strategic planning. But those are some of the triggering factors.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a good question. Thank you.
Councilman Cheatham?
As a follow-up, how fully staffed is the department at this point?
So right now we're 6 officers we need to hire. We just tested. I can give you some context to that. When I tested back in the day, there was 350 people that tested. 250 passed. We had 23 express interest in our last test. 14 passed. So we're in the background process right now. We have a couple of laterals that we're looking at as well. So we had a few people that did not pass our field training. We had a few people retire, a few people leave unexpectedly. So we're 6 officers down right now.
Well, we just hired 4, so
Yes.
really 10.
Yeah, they've got to go through the academy, and I mean, on paper we're 6, but the 4 that we just hired are in what's called our mini academy. Then they have to go through post up at Idaho State University and then complete their field training.
Follow-up, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Are you including animal control and your non-sworn personnel in those numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because our ordinance enforcement team, that's why that number went up to 147, is because of bringing the shelter and in a way to be more efficient and effective of bringing them on to ordinance enforcement. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Mangan?
To follow up on your question, we are 3 dispatchers down. We have 1 in the hiring process right now. We had a few come in, and they failed the interview horribly. So we're in the process of working with HR to put the job back out. So we're pretty confident that the one is going to be a good hire. So we'll need to hire 2 more dispatchers. So
To follow up on that, of the 10, well, I guess 6 that were short, how many of those are sworn?
All of them.
All of them. Okay.
yes. So we have 101 sworn. And then the rest are non-sworn employees, which are not officers. They're either dispatch, which they are sworn in, but the same as ordinance, our records, stenographers, evidence techs, and other support staff throughout the building. Quartermaster.
Okay.
Our struggle is sworn officers and dispatch.
Yes.
Filling those spots, it's been a challenge.
And it's competitive. I mean, everybody's fighting for the same good people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Okay, we will move to agenda item 3 is Public Works. Jeff Mansfield, Public Works Director, and department representatives will give presentations on the following topics: Public Works, GIS, Science and Environment, Engineering, and an ARPA fund.
How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Yep. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Don't worry, I need more. Oh my goodness. That's why I need this is the mess. Thanks, man.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Jeff Mansfield, Public Works Director. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I've got several presentations for you today. We'll start off with the Public Works Department presentation, which is the Fund 054. The one that I just gave you was the engineering presentation, so that one will be in a few. So as far as completed projects for FY 23-24, as typical, we responded to legal concerns, public records requests, phone calls from residents, citizens, and then also city source issues that we deal with on a daily basis. I also am directly involved with coordination between activities between different public works departments. And then another big one that we've been involved in this past year is the utility rate study. I know that was presented back in May, and so that's been a big accomplishment for my department.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could you go back, please, Jeff? What are city source issues?
So these are requests that we get from citizens that say, hey, there's a pothole in front of my house, or hey, there's a sidewalk over here, or there's a tree that's growing over this, or there's a stop sign's missing. There's a whole wide variety of different complaints that we get from citizens. And then as far as some of our outcomes and objectives for FY 25, one of my big tasks is coordinating the ARPA projects. We've got $10.7 million in there, and our deadline to have that funding spent is by the end of 26. However, it does need to be obligated by the end of this year. I am doing an ARPA presentation today, but I'm going to make it very abbreviated because I'll be coming back to council next week at the work session, and we'll be talking more about ARPA and giving you more updates on exactly where we're at with that. So, and then I've been heavily involved with the ESPA Groundwater Management Area Committee. I was selected as one of 2 city representatives to be on that committee. We were meeting about monthly. It's kind of curtailed off a little bit from that, but that's been we've been pretty involved with that, as well as Rich from the legal department. So, and then also the Johnny Creek sewer funding. We did receive the appropriations money from Congressman Simpson, and so we're in the process of trying to get that secured and finalized and designed and submitted to DEQ so that we can get that project up and rolling. As far as personnel, no change there. We have 1 exempt and 1 non-exempt. Interfund revenue. This is the number we received from finance. I am fully funded by interfund, and this number may change a little bit based on exactly what salaries and benefits and everything like that look like.
That's quick.
Jeez. What's it doing? Okay, there we go. So then as far as expenditures and expenses, just showed a 3% increase on personnel, a 3% increase on operations and maintenance, and then our interfund transfers, and then our total operating expenses. So, any questions? Jumping all over the
Seeing
place.
none.
Okay.
I'd like to comment, Mr.
Oh,
Mayor. I've been following those water meetings that Jeff's been representing the city in, and that's a vital thing that we need to keep track of in light, in particular, of the curtailment that was announced last week by the Idaho Department of Water Resources. Because now, the last meeting I attended of this group, there was rumblings in the back row that they're going to start involving municipality curtailments also. And that has me very concerned.
No question.
I don't know if you guys have met Nico yet, but he's our new GIS coordinator, and he's doing a fantastic job for us. So we're happy to have him here with us.
Thanks, Jeff. Morning, Mayor, Council. So mentioned, my name is Nico. I'm the new GIS coordinator. Last year, here are our completed projects. We were able to move from ArcMap to ArcPro. That's a 20-year-old program that we've been using. So we're happy to finally getting rid of it. We've also automated some of our processes. That leaves more time for us to focus on other things in our department. We've helped fire department complete their hub. They use it for their inspection, so it's all web-based. They can log in with their phones or their tablets, and it's easier for them to access it anywhere. Lastly, we've identified a parcel and addressing issue in the city. We've worked with the county as well as the planning department to fix those issues. They've been identified for more than 10 years, but hasn't been really fixed. So for the last 4 years, they've been trying to solve it, but we finally dealt with it. Last Friday, we've given the county the final deliverable, and they're integrating it to their system in 2 weeks. So they're doing QA, QC on it, and we're hoping to finish this before we launch into the new community development program that we're purchasing.
That's awesome.
For next year, the phase out ArcMap, as I mentioned, it's a 20-year-old program that we've been using. It's reached mature support, so everybody in the city will stop using it. We're also upgrading our Lucity that our Public Works department has been using. We've identified, after we've done our addressing and parcel cleanup, we've identified a bunch of data that needed to be cleaned in our GIS software, and we're looking for other solutions. I've recently met with WPC and other departments to find them solutions for their needs that aren't serviced in Lucity that the city is using. Here's our interfund revenue. GIS, water, and WPC, it covers all of our department very well. No changes in our personnel. We have one exempt and one non-exempt. And we are expecting a 3% increase on our personnel, operations, and interfund transfers in our total operating expenses. Questions?
Questions for Nico? Great job. Oh, we have one.
I have a question probably for Jeff. So is the GIS department also fully funded by Interfund?
Yeah, it's partially by the general fund, right? Yeah, so
It's split three ways. WPC, water, and then the non-departmental or the general fund pays that $300,000 to fund the GIS.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Super. Thank you.
Thanks, Nico.
good job.
Science and environment, is that what you got next?
Yeah, so I'll be doing science and environment for Hannah. She wasn't able to be here today, so. So Jeff Mansfield, Public Works Director for Science and Environment. So some of their completed projects for FY24 was the private stormwater pond mapping and mailings. So really just trying to keep track of our private stormwater systems. The Batiste Bridge and Douglas Lane River access. So these are a couple more access points that allow people to put in and take out of the river. Were completed. They had the Portland Valley Environmental Fair. We had thousands of people show up for that, and that's always a great opportunity for people to become more familiar with the environmental division and the city as a whole. Open space and trails. So they worked on trail projects and open space conditions mapping. And then they also completed the fuels reduction and beautification at the Pocatello Fire Creek Station. They had over $3 million worth of grants have been awarded. So we had the Centennial Rainy Park, the Oxbow project, the Portland Watershed Partnership project, the South Fifth project. So the Portland Watershed Partnership we're still waiting to hear back from, and then also the EPA Community Change Project we're also waiting to hear back on those as well. That one's a $16.5 million grant that we're hoping to get. We got the interchange fuel reduction and the fuel reduction east and west bench, the Pocatello Creek landscaping, and then the North Portland River management through Simplot. And then we're also waiting to hear back on the Idaho CDBG Parks Bathroom grant.
Hey, Jeff,
Yes,
this
sir.
sewer, the South Fifth Greenway and by Oxbows, is that, that's not bringing the Oxbows back, is that? What exactly is that grant?
That one includes a lot of different things. So there's sewering, there's sidewalks, there's water fountains at parks. And I don't remember if there was like bringing the water back into the Oxbows or not. But I think what it was more as trails down along in that area. So yeah, it was a pretty comprehensive grant that they included in that one.
Yeah. Councilmember Cheatham.
These awards have been made, as it's indicated by the yeses, but most of those projects have either not begun or are not completed. Am I correct there?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are projects that are, a lot of them are getting ready to kick off. So yeah. So some of their outcomes and objectives for FY25, obviously, as I just mentioned, you got the grant, all those grants that we've been awarded or we're waiting to be awarded. So we got the grant management of that. We got our stormwater permit management. We did submit our stormwater permit application in April, so that was completed. But we still need to continue to manage that permit. And then we've got land easement acquisition. Got that ARPA funding that potentially could be used for that, and so that's something Hannah's been working pretty diligently on. And then assisting parks with open space plans and tree plans. We did get that tree grant that they're involved in, that $1 million tree grant that they're involved in with that. As far as head count, so as Chief Shai mentioned, we did have one personnel move from exempt to non-exempt as well with the FSLA ruling. And so we went from 2 exempt to 1 exempt, and then went from 0 non-exempt and now have 1 non-exempt. And then we have a third of time seasonal person. As far as revenue, Science and Environment gets their revenue from a lot of different locations. You've got the contributions from water and WPC. You've got the stormwater co-permittees, which is Chubbuck, Bannock County, ISU, ITD. We're estimating about $330,000 worth of grant funding, and that makes up the total revenue. So as things change, with benefits and salaries and different things like that, that top number could change a little bit. Expenditures and expenses, personnel is just the 3% increase. Operations is 3% increase as well. Interfund is based on the direction we got from finance. And then our grant expenses is just based on what grants we anticipate for this year.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can we go back to the last slide for just a second, please? So if the grants and so forth don't come through, there'll be a greater contribution then from WPC and water to balance the account?
No, if we, I mean, that's just kind of a pass-through line there. So we get the grant, and then we just need the authority to spend it. And so if we don't get the grant, then we won't have that expense.
Okay.
To do the project.
All right.
And then just as far as expenses or expenditures over the 3%, these were covered by Christine the other day, and it was just the Centennial Rainy Park and then the I-15 interchange landing. Those were included in her presentation about the grants. So nothing new there. And then just some additional needs. So and this is kind of for other departments, but would be helpful to our environmental department. So fire department, they've mentioned the use of getting rid of the PFAS foam out at the airport. That would be an additional help to environmental. And then having an open space park manager or open space manager for Parks and Rec would help to manage our open spaces and our trails. And then also eventually, if this council's interested in a stormwater utility fee, that would be helpful to help us manage our stormwater facilities and capital improvement projects. So, any questions?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll go to engineering. That's the one that I passed out to you. So this is Fund 0601. So some of the key projects that we've completed for FY 23-24 is we've started construction of the Center Street Underpass project and pedestrian bridge. We're anticipating completion of that October 24. We've had some hangups with some of the railroad approvals, so it may go a little bit longer than that, but we're still trying to work on figuring out what that schedule looks like. South 5th and Jason intersection project, so that was including that pedestrian access crossing, included some flashing beacons down there, and more distinct travel lanes and medians down there. Also included some ADA access down there. Hawthorne Quinn intersection project, so we completed that project except for the final traffic signals, and we're just waiting for Idaho Power to come in and put their lines under the road, and once we have done that, we can finalize those traffic heads.
Jeff, on that project, any updates when Idaho Power is going to do that?
No, we're still waiting for them to give us an exact date on when they're going to do that.
Are we reaching out to them and finding out what's going on there, or are we just waiting for them to let us know?
Yeah, just Merrill, engineering. Idaho Power's already there. We've lined some utilities on the ground. Once that's marked, we're going to have a meeting. They have kind of give tentative award to a local contractor to bore the conduits under. But I recommended before we do that, because there's a lot of stuff there, and they're going to have to go deep to get under the water, the gas, and everything else that we had to realign because of the canal. So we're going to have a meeting there. I would hope we'd have a meeting maybe sometime next week to go over those markings that's physically on the ground, and then from there we can start making a plan. But it is moving forward, and that's kind of where we are right now. Hopefully, if we get everything together, everybody's on the same page, maybe the following week or so, or within the next couple of weeks, they'd be boring under. And once I get that conduit in, then they can pull the bottom line down. The top line's gonna remain, but the bottom line, that'll give us enough clearance, the 10 feet, so that we can maintain and take care of the signals.
So they can't just lift that bottom line up a couple feet?
No,
Not
because
enough
then,
room on the,
no, sorry,
Okay.
I didn't realize I wasn't on silent.
but we've got the markings down.
The markings are starting to get put on the ground, but they can't raise the bottom lines because it's a 12.5 and then the higher voltage at the top, and they've got to have so
Makes
much
sense.
clearance between and that too, so they can't just raise those.
Sure, that makes sense. So, but the markings are down. You will be involved in the meeting next week.
That's what we're pushing for, is a meeting next week so that we can find out where everything's at and that we're all on the same page.
Because I know you've got to go deep. There's a lot of infrastructure in that.
And then we get into the big
corner.
rocks too, so that's gonna be a little bit of an issue. So that's why I wanted to have a meeting before we started.
Okay.
Mr.
All right.
Mayor.
Yes.
Is this an unanticipated delay or project on Idaho Power's part?
No, that's a real good question. There's a lot of little factors that played into it. The plans in this area wasn't quite as detailed as it probably should have been. And then there was some confusion on what the poles were labeled, to where the first time they put the pole in, it was where the signal pole was supposed to be, so we had to wait for that pole to be relocated. Got all that worked out. But just everything was so tight in that there's just a lot of little things that added up. I can't point to who it was. It's just a lot of little things on this one, and unfortunate.
It's this project. It's one of those projects you get into the middle of and
There's
And
always
there's-
something.
15 different things that you didn't realize or anticipate. And it goes from a 2-month project to a 4.5-year project. And I'm hoping to have it done by 2045 right now.
So we're hoping to get this resolved. I know Idaho Power's been working very diligently. They've moved things ahead of schedule, postponed other things to get it done. And to throw them down to say, oh, it was Idaho Power that missed it, wouldn't be right. It's just a whole bunch of little things that added up to this. And then all of a sudden it just converged to this one point.
So hopefully within the next month, we'll see that project moving forward where they're at least boring it,
getting it in. The poles are here. We've got everything. It's just getting that line, the best way to take care of that line. And then once that's done, the rest can be erected and put into play.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And then our last one on there is the Hawthorne and Jensen Child Safety Project. That's one that we're hoping to have done by the end of this fiscal year.
We'll be bidding that hopefully within the next, by the end of June, we have a bid opening on that one. So.
And we talked about that one yesterday with the Fund 70 project, or the day before. So we did receive a couple of awards at the APWA conference this spring. The first one was the Hawthorne Quinn project, which was a project less than $3 million, or greater than $3 million, but less than $10 million. And then we also received the project of the year under $3 million for our Carson Street Bridge project. So
Putting the criteria for an award on the award plaque is the most engineering thing I've ever seen.
As far as objectives and outcomes for FY25, so these are some of the key projects that are some of the most important projects that we've got lined up. We've got the Monte Vista Trail to Pocatello Creek. We've got the Flandreau and Yellowstone Safety Project, Main and Arthur Pedestrian Safety Project, the Benton Street Bridge over the Portneuf, and then the Highline El Rancho intersection projects.
These are grant funded, aren't they?
Yes, most of these are grant. Yes, these. Let's see. Yeah, all of these should be grant funded. Yep. So just trying to look through there, see if there's any that we are.
The only one I wasn't sure of was Monte Vista, Pocatello Creek Pathway.
Mr. Mayor, are most of those 734% matches?
They vary. So the Benton Street Bridge is
no
no
match.
match. Yeah, that's a complete replacement with zero match.
7.3, I believe they are all, every one of them up there are all 7.3, I believe. One point I would like to, on the Monte Vista Trail, it's always good to share that Port of Health Trust, along with the Greenway organized, and there's $250,000 worth of match and stuff that goes along with that they are covering, and we have received.
As far as personnel, no change in personnel. We've got 5 exempt and 4 non-exempt. And then our revenues, so we bring in about $60,000 in fees. However, it should be noted that we are also responsible for approximately 25% of the development review fees that are not included in that $60,000. So we do play a role in those development applications.
Can we go back a slide, please?
You bet.
All of those positions are currently not filled. Am I accurate there?
Beg your pardon?
Are all of those positions currently filled?
We currently have 1 exempt position that is not filled. We did interview for that position yesterday, and so we're in the process of filling one of those exempt positions.
Good, thank you.
Expenditures just showed a 3% increase on personnel, operations, and then our interfund is based on what the information we should receive from finance with our total operating expenses. Any questions on engineering? If not, I'll move on to Fund 71.
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, I guess we do have one, Council President.
I just wanted to go back for a minute to the Benton Street Bridge. You've got TBD. Any idea when that one would
So that
happen?
one's currently in design. I would anticipate maybe construction next year.
Possibly next year. It's moving, the design with Keller and Associates is moving along really good with our monthly meetings. And like I said, this is like the Carson Street Bridge. It is in the bridge bundle, and it's really good. And it's impressed that we were able to get a full bridge replacement there, which puts our bridges along the port, and most of them in really good shape.
We've been really successful at applying for the bridge money and getting those bridges replaced along the port.
Mr. Mayor, if I may follow up to Linda's issue, has the usage of that bridge been degraded as far as the rating? Or
No, it has not been downrated, is my understanding, yeah.
Okay,
Carson Street Bridge was, but this one has not yet.
okay.
We'll be,
Yet.
yeah, not yet.
Okay. All right, so Fund 71 is the Alternate Transportation Fund. This is a fund that we started a few years ago to really try to help us tackle pedestrian type projects. The balance that I show on here is actually incorrect. We looked it up this morning, and the current balance in this fund is $454,936.95. And a lot of that's due to the contribution, like Merrill mentioned, that we got from the Port of Health Trust for the Monte Vista path. So,
Could you read that number again, Jeff?
$454,936.95.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Mansfield.
Those amounts, are those going to be our financial obligations to those
No.
projects?
Yeah,
No.
those
Okay,
are
I
those are
didn't think
total
so.
project costs.
Okay,
And then, some of them have a match, some of them don't.
Right.
Yeah, so.
but you're, that based on the final bullet point, asking for full budget authority of the total so that you can match any of those projects, grants, as well as future and other ones that may be acquired this year?
Yeah, and we'll get into that on the next slide. What we're asking for is because as we get funding, we need to be able to expend it, and so we need full budget authority in order to be able to make these projects happen. So some of the current projects that we have going on with this fund right now is the Brennan Trail path for $780,000. We got the FY23 ADA ramp project for $60,000. This one here, I believe we get paid 75% of this up front.
Yes.
And then when we complete the project, then we get the rest of that money with 0% match. Monte Vista path for $500,000. Like I said, we did get a pretty substantial contribution from Port of Health Trust to help with that project. And then we've got the South Fifth Sidewalk Improvements Project for $525,000. This was a grant application that we applied for a few months ago. We applied for $500,000. They gave us $525,000. I believe our match is about $40,000 on there, but really the goal is to try to get sidewalks all the way as far as we can out South Fifth on one side of the road. So again, we're asking for full budget authority on Fund 71 so that we can accomplish those projects as the funding comes in and goes back out. As far as budget requests for FY25, we've got a grant application that we submitted for the child pedestrian safety improvements, which is on North 15th Avenue and Oak Street. That's a $250,000 project. We're pretty confident that we're going to get that one, but that is grant funded, 100% on that one, right? If I remember right.
No, it's 7.2.
It's okay. So, but we will have that project, and then we've got the match for the South Fifth Sidewalk project that I just mentioned. So we'll need $40,000 money for that, and then we're asking for an increase to this fund of $60,000 for future pedestrian projects. So essentially, the ask we're asking for is $100,000 for this fund for between the South Fifth Sidewalk project and future pedestrian projects.
I am wrong. It is fully.
Okay, so yeah, the pedestrian safety improvements project is fully funded.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Nichols.
So how far south do you expect you can get with the sidewalks on South Fifth?
When we did everything before the annexation and that, we're hoping to go past probably somewhere in front of the state police, somewhere in about that area is where we're probably going to end up, between that and the Rocky Gnar trailer park, somewhere in that 100-yard, I would say. One of the big things that we're going to be working on, besides the sidewalk, is it includes a pathway through Constitution Park that will go out and around. That'll be a 10-foot pathway that goes in there because of the grades between 5th and the park on the northerly side. It's kind of hard to put that in. So that's part of that, what you'll see as that goes in part of the grant.
All right, thank you.
Will it be on the east side or west side?
East side.
The east side.
Well, yeah, the northeasterly side, because it's running ski wampus.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope, thank you.
So this next one is about is ARPA Fund 084. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, just because I will be coming back next week and we can have a more in-depth conversation at that time. But I will let you know that we did get some updated guidance from them regarding the obligation of the funding by FY24, the end of FY24, and they kind of doubled down on that criteria. I was kind of hoping that we'd see something that said, okay, we're going to give you an extra year, we're going to give you an extra 6 months, but the guidance that we've seen so far says, yeah, this is going to happen, and it needs to be obligated by the end of this year. So.
And obligated means signed contracts.
Obligated means signed contracts. It means the work has been completed. You can do like a sub-recipient agreement is kind of my understanding. They kind of did clarify that a little bit. So like with some of the mental health stuff, if you have a sub-recipient agreement, that would qualify as well. But
okay.
But really, yes, a signed purchase order.
Put a sticky note with the
saying,
project
okay, we're going to do that obligated.
Yeah,
we're going to do that obligated.
Just having a budget council decision doesn't qualify. So,
but we think it should.
All right, and on that note, I mean, as you guys are listening to these budget presentations, I know I've made notes of a few for parks and fire and a few different ones. So I mean, if you guys hear something that piques your interest and it's like, hey, maybe that would be a good place to put some of this funding, then be thinking about that, and we can talk about that a little bit more next week. So, so Fund 84. So this is kind of a rough draft of where we're at right now. So the amount expended to date. So again, as I mentioned, we have $10.7 million in this fund. The amount expended to date is $4.1 million. So roughly 40% of it. The amount that's obligated is $8.3 million. And then the amount left to be obligated is $2.3 million. So
Jeff, this 8.3 million is under contract.
yeah, I'll get into that.
Next week?
No, well, I mean, in the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll talk about it, and it varies. Yeah, it varies.
Okay.
It's fuzzy.
You're confident that will be obligated, though.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So this is the
Jared's
picture I'm painting today. Let's just put it that way. Okay. So the orange one here, the first one is the premium pay. That's all complete and done, expended. Well number 2, we've expended about $1.6 million of that. We anticipate that to go over budget by about $220,000. Estimated completion date of construction is March of 25, but we can get that fully obligated and go from there. So fire alert system. So we originally identified $600,000 for this. The county contributed $200,000, and then we did have a change order for $126,000. So still a little bit under budget what we had originally allocated for that particular project. Ross Park slide. So we originally budgeted $1 million for this, and it's my understanding that to this date we've expended $1.4 million on that. So I'll make sure and confirm that for next week, and have these people here that are involved in these projects if additional questions get brought up. So grant matching, this is one that's going to be a little bit kind of maybe have some excess there. We allocated $2 million for this. I know we have received one award for the Centennial Rainy Park, and that has a match of $545,000. And that grant agreement has been finalized, and so in my opinion, that is obligated. The other one that we were hoping to get was the Protect grant, which is the stormwater project down on First Avenue, but we did not get that one, so that $406,000 match for that is not going to be utilized. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
And does the grant matching continue on the next slide?
No.
Is there any other grant imminent that we have not currently budgeted or have match funds available for that we foresee receiving notice of before the end of FY24?
And I'm working with Christine and Becky on that, because I mean, it takes some time to get those grant agreements in place. There's a couple out there that we're hopeful we'll be able to get in place before the end of the year, but I'll have more information on. I'll have Christine here next week.
Great.
And we should be able to answer that better next week. Pickleball, it's coming along pretty good. They got that paved. So to date, they've expended $440,000 on that. It's been interesting to hear the buzz around the community, people talking about pickleball, and so. Brooklands Playground.
Just a minute.
Sorry.
Jeff.
But on pickleball, the updated cost is 50,000 less?
That's what I've received from Ann, so yeah. Brooklands Playground, this one we had $275,000. Updated costs are $155,000. That was the bid. And then the expended to date was $155,000, and I believe that one is completed. So we got an extra $120,000 there. Finance. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Are we close to making up the amount that we were over?
I haven't done an analysis on that yet. I'll bring that next week.
Okay.
Yeah. Finance software. So we have not expended anything on this yet. It's my understanding that we'll be expending $300,000 this year and then $300,000 next year, but that funding is fully obligated with our contract, correct? Okay.
Is that number going to change?
I don't think so. It's a locked-in contract. Right now, it's just a progression, as they meet milestones, we pay it.
Okay.
And then these are the ones that are kind of classified as unobligated. The stormwater project over on First Street. This is $1 million that we allocated for this. We are finalizing the design on that. We anticipate going out for bid in July, early August on that one, and so we anticipate that we should have this one under contract by the end of the year. So that one we had applied for a grant for, hoping to get it, but didn't get the grant, and so now we'll utilize the stormwater money for that. Mental health, I think the last that I spoke with Christine, she had gotten subrecipient agreements on the mental health, and so I think that we're probably pretty good on that one right there. So zoo potable water, I know they were working on getting quotes to do this one. I haven't had an update on them, but I'll have more information next week on where we're at on that one. Real property, same thing. I know Hannah's been working with Sagebrush Step and with different property owners, and I'll have better information for you on that one as well. And then nothing new on South Fifth Sewer. I'll bring better information next week. And then cemetery roads. I know that one is planning to be completed this summer, and so that one should be expended.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, let's go Council President and then Mansfield.
On the South Fifth Sewer, you said nothing new there. The grant application was submitted 5/24. Do we have any idea when we'll hear on that?
So that was the grant for that I talked about in science and environment. So we submitted that $16.5 million grant for the EPA community change. And so if we end up getting that grant, then this may not be necessarily need to be used, or potentially to be used as a match
For something else.
for that particular grant.
But do we know anything about when we would hear on that grant?
I don't. I'll
Okay.
check into that one as well.
If you can have
Thank you.
those dates next week, that would be great.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Mansfield?
For projects like cemetery roads or pickleball or things that are done primarily in-house, how do we formally obligate funds?
Spend it.
It's okay. So
that's-
anything that we're going to spend ARPA on that's in-house, we need to spend this year essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, by the end of '26.
Well, no, but it's got to be obligated by the end of this year.
And
you-
if obligated
You know,
with spending,
Obligated means spend it.
Obligated has to mean spend it for in-house projects. Because how do you write a contract with streets to pave cemetery roads?
Well, we've got that main road. We're running that water line through next summer and then paving that. Is there a way to get that main road going down through there obligated, because we can't pave it this year?
unless we have a contractor come in and bid it.
Well, this might be what we got to do, but we just soon.
That may be a question then.
Why don't you find out if there's a way we can have a contract with ourselves
Okay.
for a project like that? That sounds crazy, but
I'll do some more
but
research.
why don't
into
we?
it, but-
Why don't we see? Because, I mean, that is going to be an issue.
yeah.
If we've got it obligated, but we can't obligate it without it being spent, there's no sense in paving it so we can tear it up and repave
Could our
it.
contract with other organizations include details about what work we will do? So for example, like pickleball, if we got a contract for surfacing, right? If we wrote the contract in a way that said, I don't know, this is probably
Tom,
an attorney.
come on up here.
Tom?
Yeah,
Oh.
Tom, come on up here. He was going to come up and I waved him off and come on.
So hypothetical pickleball. Let's say we know that Tom couldn't do the work this year. It decided it was going to rain. It turned into the Pacific Northwest and it rained the rest of the year. Tom can't pave it, can't get the work done. Could we write a contract with whatever pickleball group does the surfacing that says, here's the steps of the project, and identify, we will do this part and this is how much it's going to cost. You will do this part. This is how much it's going to cost. Is that?
Well, you could, but I think your contract would only be the amount that you're paying them to do, though. The contract amount, I don't think, would be for your own work.
Tom Kirkman, Director of Public Services. I think one way to get around this, the section that they're running the water line down isn't, I mean, it's long, but it's fairly narrow. It's gonna be a couple 100 tons of asphalt. I can get you that exact number. Maybe I could get you what that would cost. You can obligate some other money for that, and then we can use funds, the capital contingency or something to pave it later. I think that might be the easiest way, because it's not gonna be a huge amount of cost doing just that one section of road. And so to quote the chief, the juice may not be worth the squeeze on that one.
Fair enough. Councilmember Cheatham.
Just for clarification, we can use ARPA funds as matching funds for other programs, other federal grants and programs?
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Which, isn't that what we're doing with that, with the grant?
With a couple grants, yeah.
Right there.
The grant match, yeah, we allocated to.
Let me get with Jared next week as far as
Okay.
what this obligation requirement looks like
For in-house.
and Christine, and then we'll kind of go from there. But
All right. Okay, thank you.
okay.
Oh, we've got another question, Councilmember Nicholas.
So it looks like we may have some savings on the already completed or the obligated projects. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you have a sense of what that might be at the end of the day?
I don't. Yeah, that's what I haven't done a final analysis on that. Let me get that. I'll bring it to you guys next week.
Okay, great, thank you.
You bet.
Oh, did you?
Because I know we were a couple $100,000 over, and so I want to get a better number on that.
Yeah. And is that, all of that included in that 2.3 million that is, we need to obligate? Or will that number go up? You can answer that next week.
Yeah, it probably will.
Answer it next week. We'll know better then.
Okay.
Don't give us an answer now. We'll run
Borrow
with
the
it.
attorney's phrase. It depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Right. We can look into that.
Then we'll move to agenda item number 4 is water pollution control.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Before we do that, though, we are going to take a break.
The life of a government.
Morning, and thank you for joining us after the break. We'll go ahead and get started with agenda item 4 is water pollution control. Levi Adams, Water Pollution Control Superintendent, will give a presentation.
Good morning. I'm Levi Adams, Water Pollution Control Superintendent. If you notice, there is a handout. What was submitted wasn't quite right. It was an older version. So the way we build our financials at our budget at Water Pollution Control is everything's based off our federal permit. Our federal permit is actually regulated or ran by the state of Idaho. So there are a certain amount of requirements that we have to meet. That financial plan helps us meet that, and what feeds in that financial plan is our collection system master plan, as well as the treatment plant facility master plan. And that's where we come up with those major capital projects to drive our budget. This last year, we did complete our rate study for the next 5 years. This will be the first budget year out of that next rate study. We are also in the process of completing a new admin operations building, which will also have a training center in it as well. We're mostly through a phase 1 of the dewatering process. That's going to be a major change for the treatment plant. We're no longer going to land apply a wet biosolids. It will be more of a dry biosolids. That opens up a lot of opportunities in the future, whether we want to go into composting or whatever else we want to do with those dried biosolids. It's a good move forward for the department. And then our annual cured in place piping repair. That's where we're going through and spot repairing certain pipes throughout the city that we have identified that need replacement.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could you identify where you expect to work this year on the relining project?
Could I identify right now? No. What we have is we'll go through with our inspection camera van and identify those specific lines throughout town. We try to get through a good portion of the city. Obviously, it's a slower process, and we have over 300 miles of sewer lines within the city, so you don't get through all of it. We'll run through and then review those and find those spots where there may be a crack somewhere, where there may be some of the older lines that are falling apart or having some degradation on the top of the lines, and we'll get those identified and get them on a list. I don't have that list in front of me. My collection supervisor has a pretty good list going so far, but I don't have that to give you. If you wanted that information, I could probably get you some better information. We work with engineering department to get those projects out.
If I may be a little more specific, then there's been great concern about that South Fifth area that we're going to be annexing. Is that area going to be a priority?
We will identify that area. A lot of those areas are in private lines, meaning as if there's a particular trailer park and they own the land, the lines within that trailer park are owned by that business. It's similar to your home, where the line from your home to the city sewer is your responsibility. Within that plan, if the city does not own that infrastructure, we don't have the ability to go in and fix that infrastructure. A lot of what we were going to do on that South Fifth is we would have the money to identify and go in and look at those things and find whether there's problems there or whether there's not problems there. And maybe there would be some way that we could help the owner of that particular localized system fix those repairs. So like I said, it's not, we don't have the ability to go in and say, hey, we're gonna fix your line and you don't have anything to say about it. So does that help answer that question a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Council President?
Maybe I'm getting ahead of you here. The admin building, it says July 2024. Are we on schedule?
We are ahead of schedule. The actual contract date is October. So they are flying. They're doing a great job. So we're hoping mid to end July will actually be moved in. There's basically the exterior work needs to be done, asphalt needs to be put down, curbs, that kind of thing. The finish grading on all the outside needs to be finished up, but the inside's looking really good.
It's going really well.
Going really well. I'm excited about that one.
We get a tour soon?
I wouldn't do it now. It's a mess right now.
Okay.
Everything gets messy before it gets finished up. Yes, when we're done, we'll have a tour. Next spring, when the dewatering project's done and the admin building's done, we'll probably have a nice big open house, invite the public out to see the treatment plant and to see the new additions we have, but that won't be till next spring, where we can actually get everything cleaned up and everything looking nice and back to where it should be.
Good, thank you.
Some of the objectives for next year, we're going to update that collection system master plan. It's been a few years. We've done the majority of the projects that were called out in the last plan. We're doing a few more of those this year, but we need to get an updated version. We'll have an outside engineering firm come in that specializes in these sort of plans and get a new plan for that collection system. That's what we have out in town. That's the lines in town, that's the lift stations and all that. Obviously, we need to continue to update that plan as things go, as infrastructure begins to wear out in age. We need to be able to identify where we need to spend those dollars in that collection system. Another major project is the North Main sewer crossing. There's a sewer line that crosses the North Main extension. Obviously, that's a very busy road. There's a lot of technical issues going through there. You have the railroad tracks that are right there. You have the Portage River. So it's going to be an involved project for a very short section of line, but it needs to be taken care of. That's one of the things that we have identified that needs to be taken care of. So that'll be done this year. And then again, that we've kind of renamed our CIPP because we're going to start doing a little bit more than that. There's lots of small projects that we have around town that we need to be taken care of. We can line manholes that the insides have been starting to wear out. Again, we can do some of that cast in place piping as well, or any other small sections. throughout the city, we do jet most every line throughout the city once a year. We've gone through in the summer, and those guys go out and hit every line. There are some trouble spots throughout the city that we actually call our monthly jet. We have to hit monthly for reasons, whether there's a belly in the line or some other problems. They needed a lot of attention. Obviously, that's a lot of time. We don't want to hit those monthly because it's, rain or shine, snow or wind, whatever. We have to go out and get those spots taken care of so we don't cause backups in those areas. So identifying some of those problems by increasing the fund amount for this thing, we're hoping to remove some of those monthly jet areas off of that list to help free up some time for people. We have earmarked $500,000 a year for the last 15 years, and it's just time to up the amount of money that we need to dedicate to that particular project.
Okay, Councilmember Cheatham?
Specifically, where is that North Main sewer crossing?
It is real close to where Craft Road hits. It's kind of outside of that area, that same construction where they're going to redo that intersection. It's not going to be quite in the same area. It's just a little bit north of that. It's real close to where the river's at. Where the river
But it's still on the west side?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like I said, crossing the river, and that's where where that main trunk line, the main gravity line that feeds into the plant, it ties right into that.
Thank you.
Council President?
So this last one there, the collection system infrastructure rehab is kind of an expansion of CIPP?
Right. It's a better identification for what the funds are going to be used for.
Are you calling it CSIR?
Sure. We do like our acronyms. I don't know what we're going to call it, but it's going to be for the rehab for whatever we can come up with.
Okay.
Personnel that we do have 5 exempt personnel. We have 26 non-exempt. We removed all of our seasonal. This last year, we did the swap, the 2 seasonals for 1 full-time employee. That has worked out very well. It's not only has it gotten us some quality employees at the plant, it reduced a lot of time. There's a lot of time that goes into trying to hire and maintain and train seasonal employees. So that has worked out very, very well. Again, not only do we pay for the employees at the treatment plant, we also pay for, I think that slide's a little different than what I have. Sorry about that. No, I think the salary numbers are slightly different, but we do pay for half of 2 engineers in the engineering department and half of 2 of the techs. The other half is paid for by the water department. The actual budget costs in that, as you'll see in your thing, your handout, last year was $3.3 million, and this next year coming up is $3.4 million. That's with that 3% increase on the salaries. Like I said, the numbers are slightly different, but the expenditures, again, the personnel costs have increased to $3.4 million. O&M is up to $3.6 million, and I am rounding a little bit. The interfund transfers have gone up a little bit. Like I said, Gene's been working on justification and figuring out what we're doing and balancing out those interfund transfers. Some go up, some go down for us in there. The debt service is, again, that $1.6 million. That's a correct number. Capital outlay has actually dropped. We're only going to be at $3 million on our capital outlay. The biggest part of that is last year we had the admin building in that capital outlay numbers. It is not in there this year, but we do have some other expensive things that we are going to be doing, so it is still there, but it is a $3 million. And then we are not doing that $1.3 million transfer into Fund 74. We were building up those funds in Fund 74. Fund 74 is our capital construction fund. We are kind of changing philosophy a little bit on what we're doing. We have a capital plan that we're going to be spending the money in. any of those savings and any of the extra, I shouldn't say extra, any of the revenue above what we've projected is going to be transferred into that Fund 74. I'm not sure if that's going to be done in a budget amendment or if we can just do the transfer. That's Gene's call on that one. We'll leave it to the experts on that. So our actual overall total expenses this year is dropped down to 13.9 million, not that $16 million. I went through a lot of numbers really fast, so. Okay. The large O&M expenses, that number is correct. Fuel's expensive. We have a lot of large equipment that spends a lot of time going around the city. And then also our biosolids application runs a lot of fuel. Hopefully with the new process, we'll reduce the number of trips with those large trucks to apply more than half easily. We're hoping to drop those down to a quarter, so that's going to be a large fuel savings for us. Electricity just keeps going up. We had a major bump last year. We're going to be another, I think, 15 to 20% again in January. They continue to hit us as a major user. Those prices keep going up. And then, the equipment costs continue to rise. And so that's a major thing. This next year, we are getting new vehicles. The major portion of that increase is going to be a new jet truck. I know some of the comments of mileage, we don't go on mileage. We go on actual years because of the amount of hours you put on. That truck may run, it may only put 20 miles a day on it, but it's going to be running for 8 hours and running fairly hard because you're running a pump off of that motor. So those hours are a bigger indicator than the mileage. We try to run every 5 years. In our experience, anything after 5 years, things start to break down, and you spend more time fixing the vehicle than it is working. So every 5 years, there's still life left in the vehicle. They get moved around. Sometimes some of the other departments want them. We've used them again within the plant where it's not as critical to have a working jet truck, but as it is within the city. Yeah, excuse me. Again, like I said, we increased that.
Levi, just a minute. We got a question by,
You can finish because I want to go back to something. But
Okay.
Go ahead and finish.
Councilmember Cheatham.
Oh, sorry.
When you buy a new jet truck, are you buying all the equipment or just the chassis?
No, it's the whole thing. It's the truck body, it's the pump, it's the tank, it's all of the hydraulics that run everything. That's the whole.
Are there other departments that have need for that entire set of equipment?
I know when we do the vacuum trucks, there's a need, both the water and the street use those for different things. I know water uses it for hydro excavation. Street uses it to help clean out the storm drain systems. Tom has already claimed the next one when we get it, which is great. The jet trucks, it can be used for multiple things. Street may want it again to clean the storm drains. If not, we'll probably do a trade-in on it because some of the smaller communities will take an older used truck. So it does have some trade-in value as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
And again, you can see the increase in the cured-in pipe line that we'll come up with a new acronym to confuse everybody again. We'll just throw that out there. The reduction in the admin, that was a major capital cost last year. And then we rolled over $3 million in the phase one of the dewatering. We're not asking for additional funds. That's just a carryover because all of those funds aren't going to get spent in this particular budget year.
I'll ask mine.
Okay.
I just wanted to go back to the Fund 74.
Okay.
You were talking about your change in philosophy or approach to that. Could you just repeat that or explain
we
it?
went through and the previous the previous rate study, I don't think earmark's a good word. We put 1.3 million a year into Fund 74. That was for whatever projects were coming up. We knew we had some big projects. We knew we wanted to get the dewatering done that needed to be done, as well as, we were able to do some other things. We were able to pay off debt service. We were able to do some other things to create enough cash in that account so we didn't have to go bond for that $10 million project. We have big projects. We don't have anything looming right now that we have to get done that we're not going to be able to fund with the rate study.
Okay.
With that being said, that 1.3 million is going to be used in multiple small projects throughout this next rate study. So but we still want to be able to have that capital. So if something comes up, and I need $4 or $5 million, there'll still be some money in that capital project. So any savings, so if I bid North Main Extension for $1 million, I have budgeted, it comes in at 750. That extra, rather than just staying in the regular funding account, it'll be moved over out of here into the capital construction account. So it's there ready. So there's not a dedicated amount going to that fund, but any of the savings of or whatever projects I'm doing, any capital outlay that I'm not using, I'm going to move into that. So I have that pool. It won't build as quickly, obviously, because if you don't have the dedicated amount, but it's without the large looming project, it's better to get some of these small ones. When you have a big project, all the little ones tend to kind of be waiting, and we got a lot of little ones waiting, so we'll start knocking those ones
Sort of
off.
extra savings account for those other projects. Thank you.
Councilmember Mansfield.
Is Fund 74 then your reserves, or is it just a capital outlay project, or capital expenditure?
Not my reserves. I keep reserves within the operating fund. I have 4 different funds.
Okay.
I have, and this, Gene is going to be mad, but this is the way I look at things. I have Fund 32, which is my checking account. This is where I spend everything. This is where personnel cost comes out. This is the day-to-day process and everything.
Yep.
Fund 74 is my savings account.
Okay.
So I'm building up 74 to save, and I apologize if I'm dumbing this down too much, but it's the savings account. So when I have a big purchase, I have something that I need to do, I'm not spending out of my checking account, I'm spending out of my savings. And then I have the debt service, because we have to earmark a certain amount of money to show that we have the money to pay our bills.
Yep.
And then we have the capacity fees that go into a separate account as well. So we know what those are being spent on, because there's limits to what you can spend that on. You can't just put that into the general account.
So the reason I ask is this idea of taking incremental amounts that you're then moving aside for bigger projects. Do you, I think Tom is the one who best articulates often in his presentations, like what a worst case scenario, like what keeps him up at night. I don't know what keeps you up at night over at WPC, but whatever that large issue is, do we have the money to cover that?
It depends on what that large issue is.
Okay, and
there's a lot of things that keep me up at night. I made fun of the police department, told them to keep it short. So I will.
Okay.
I can expand for a lot of time on what keeps me up at night. Power issues are the biggest thing. There's some really unique and forward-thinking things that we want to do on the power side of our plant, which would be great, but that's a big ticket item.
Okay.
We're years away from that. There's always something. There's always little things. We have enough in the checking account, and there'll be some left over in the savings account to cover the majority of things that could possibly go wrong.
Okay.
Anything catastrophic, and it's catastrophic.
Right.
The infrastructure, the treatment plant, that's $500 million sitting out there. We don't have. If the plant blows up, we don't have the money to buy a new plant.
Sure.
But a lift station happens to blow up, yeah, I got the $2 or $3 million it's going to take to replace that lift station.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Again, the sources of our revenue, we took the 3% there, so the new revenue is $9.8 million. That is correct. We do have industrial revenue. I'm always very conservative with industrial revenue. I've bumped it up a little more this year than I have in the past. It can be volatile. It has the possibility to be volatile. It hasn't been in the past. But if one of our large industries, malt plant, suddenly decides that they're going to cut production in half, there's nothing we can do, and then that source of revenue is going to be gone. So I'm very leery at trying to identify what the actual revenue from those large industries are going to be. This is a very conservative estimate on what we're going to get from them. So again, the expected revenue is going to be around $14 million. And then again, on the last slide, that's the one we really want to try to highlight. Yeah, we take our 3% increase every year, but we're still doing, in my opinion, an excellent job for what it costs the citizens. You know, we do a comparison to show, and different plans have different, you know, expenses and different things they're paying for. But in my opinion, we do an excellent job for a very reasonable rate.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Just for curiosity's sake, are there things we could do to get down to the Twin Falls, Rideau Falls rates? I mean, besides just cutting rates, are there any efficiencies that we should work toward?
The things that we do are efficient. First off, our personnel costs are extremely low because we don't man the plant. A lot of places man their treatment facilities 24 hours a day, or at least 16 hours a day. We don't. We've put that money into automation, which is a whole lot cheaper than personnel. We also want to make sure that the treatment plant is ready for anything that comes in. So if we get a major industry that comes in, we're not going to have to wait 4 or 5 years for improvements to the plant to have that industry being able to start discharging to us. We want to keep up on the infrastructure. That's why we do the continual maintenance within the collection systems and all the things we do. I am always open and trying to find efficiencies, but I don't know, other than putting off certain projects and putting off things, that I could get the rates down to the Twin Falls or the Idaho Falls area. There's a certain amount of upkeep that you have to do, otherwise you're behind. You know, you go and you look at some of the projects that are going around. The city of Nampa is putting $500 million into a treatment plant. I don't even want to imagine what the bond is going to be on that. You know, obviously they're growing. There's more people there. There's more funds, but still, that's huge. I can't even fathom. I mean, we go through a lot in this department as far as funds coming in and out, and but the amount of money that some places are spending because they defer. I don't want to defer maintenance. I don't want to defer upgrades to reduce that rate.
And I look at this, and I have got to tell you, Councilmember Cheatham, I think we're in really good shape. I mean, we get compared to Meridian all the time, Caldwell all the time. You get compared to Ammon, to Chubbuck. We throw Chubbuck in there. I mean, they're twice as much as we are.
And I don't mean to mean that we aren't doing things well. I'm just wondering if they're, I mean, I'm sure you read about new processes and technology in your department all the time. I'm just wondering if there might be something out there that we should invest in that might help us not only lower the rate, but keep the rate low over the long term.
Yeah, and that's it. That is essentially what my job is. I don't run the treatment plant. I give my employees the tools to run it. And part of my job is to try to help them be as efficient as they possibly can. Whether that's personnel, and sometimes efficiency is buying a new truck. Sometimes efficiency is building a dewatering process. Mm-hmm. So if I can reduce the amount of trips with the biosolids application from the 5 to 6 months that they spend now to 2, that's 4 months worth of employee time that we can do other things. That's 4 months worth of overtime that we don't have to do. So, but sometimes, like I said, you got to spend money to save money, but we are always looking to try to be as efficient as we possibly can.
May I follow up with one additional area? Capacity.
Yes.
How are we set for capacity for future growth?
We are in pretty good shape. We have identified some of the bottlenecks. We have some markers. In my world, when we hit 80% capacity, you have to do a facility study and start making changes. We are not near that 80% capacity. We're closer to probably 50. The next thing that needs to be done would be an additional screen in the headworks. That gets us right back up to the 20 million gallon range capacity rather than the 14 where we're at. Any of the new processes that we're putting on, we're designing to run that 20 million gallons a day range rather than the 14 that the bottlenecks the plant currently sit at. So it's, as things come, as things grow, it's a new clarifier here. We built the filter building with the ability to add 2 more cells at the end that could get us up to 30 million gallons a day. So we're always looking forward for that growth. The actual flow growth has not gone up with the population growth. The water is becoming more concentrated, but the actual gallons it has not gone up with. It's low flow shower heads, it's low flow toilets. It's people being aware that we live in a desert and we want to conserve as much water as we can. I think the population of the city is very aware of that and does a wonderful job in reducing what they use.
Linda?
I wanted to go back to Rick's first question and ask about, I think we do a very good job at keeping our rates very reasonable and giving a good value for the money, but I was curious about the rate study. And how much does the rate study take into account looking for those kinds of efficiencies? Is that built into that, or is that not really part of it?
The rate study basically calculates how much it costs to treat a gallon of water, let's just say. And then they take that and they expand it to the different users. Who's using what? Where can we recover those costs within a reasonable rate? And then it takes in, and it calculates, okay, today it's going to cost this much. And as the prediction of what the increase in cost is going to be, which include the fuel, it includes personnel costs, it includes transfers, it includes all of these different things and the capital projects you need, and then it spreads that load out through all of the users. So any of the efficiencies we come through will be shown in the next rate study. So those efficiencies, the cost of a pump may go up 10%, 15, 20, 30, it seems like these last couple of years, but those rates are only going up 3%. So you can look at it
but it gets
in a certain way.
later.
Yeah, those efficiencies you're going to see because the rates of the treatment plant don't go up to match the cost of things.
Okay. So it's sort of reflected in there, but not when you're doing the rate study, you're not looking at.
We don't go through and make the assumptions, well, we're going to be 15% more efficient, so we're going to reduce the rates.
Okay.
That would be very difficult, 1, to calculate and 2, to meet.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Mangum.
From the industrial side, is the rate comparable to the residential as it compares to these other outliers?
From the industrial side, that's a difficult question because everybody charges the industry slightly differently.
Okay.
We charge the industries based on the flow that they give us and the concentration of what's in their discharge. So we actually sample each of these industries multiple times during the week so we know what to actually charge them. So they're charged what they actually give us. Within the rate structure of yourself as a homeowner, it's different because all of those calculations are assumed. A house technically has A, B, C, and D is what you're going to get. So we have to calculate that into the average flow from a home and that. So we kind of spread that out over all of the homeowners. Other cities bill industries differently. That's the way we've done it for a lot of years. That's the way a lot of people do it. But I can't say that's the way Twin Falls does it. I'm not into their billing system. I don't know for sure. We could probably do some sort of research and find out for you how they bill it. But to me, it seems equitable. That's what we're doing. Here's the flow we're giving us. Here's the concentration we're giving us. We know it costs us X amount to treat that much water, and it costs us X amount to treat that much strength in there. There's the cost.
Okay, other questions?
Mr. Mayor? Yes. Do
Councilman
we get
Nichols.
much stormwater into our sanitary sewer system?
Yes and no. How's that for a good answer?
It depends.
It depends. It depends. A normal rain event, no. When you get a spot where the streets are flooded, all those manholes do have small holes in them, and you'd be amazed how much water can come in a small hole, especially if you have a flooded street system. So what really affects us is when we have those large concentrated storms over one small area of town, streets start to flood, that's where we get it. Like I said, we do a lot of maintenance to keep those pipes tight. So the only thing going into them is wastewater. In the industry, it's called I&I. And we don't have a lot. So when the groundwater comes up and down, we don't see a change in the flow because those pipes are tight, because we spend a lot of money trying to make sure that they are. Because it's cheaper to fix the pipe than it is to treat the water on the end.
Got it, thank you.
Super, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to Water Department. Justin Armstrong, Water Superintendent, will give a presentation.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Justin Armstrong, Water Superintendent. Quickly, just wanted to go through some of our major projects that we accomplished this year that support our mission. So one of the most major was the Pocatello Creek Booster Station transmission line. This was a multi-year project, nearly $12 million in cost. Back in November of 23, that project was completed. It's been placed online and it's in operation today. So one of those projects that, as Levi said earlier, helps me sleep a little better at night, knowing that we have some redundancy and some contingency within our backbone infrastructure. Another backbone infrastructure project was the 5 million gallon tank and transmission line project. That project is on the west side of town, one of our main feeds into the valley floor. That project had a lot of challenges with railroad crossings, river crossings, up the hill, rocky terrain, and that project was also completed actually last month with some of the punch list items identified. So well 2, well 22, that project is ongoing, but this last year we completed the drilling of those projects. We went in with a design capacity and goal, and we're able to double the goal on production capacity on both of those wells. For instance, well 2 was previously capable of only producing about 1,000 gallons per minute. With the new well, the new site and location, that's able to produce 2,000 gallons per minute out of that site. Well 22, similar story. Our goal was to identify at least 1,500 gallons per minute, and with that one, we're capable of producing 3,000 gallons per minute. So successful projects. We're currently in the phase of building and constructing the well houses and equipping the pumps and motors for those two pumping facilities. We're currently in the design process for High Country tank replacement. That's a 1 million gallon storage structure. It's an old tank that was our one and only bolted steel tank that was placed by development back in the 90s. We looked at that tank to evaluate whether we could recoat that facility or what the coating costs would be required to full replacement. In the long-term operation, it was found that replacement was recommended because of the challenges of bolted panels, getting seal, keeping that in operation, and then long-term maintenance. Water line replacement projects, these are projects that we complete in-house.
Many of those projects have been focused on various city neighborhoods, such as Center Street Underpass, in collaboration with that upgrade. We went through and replaced a 90-year-old water line through there back in February. And then we've done some smaller projects on Harrison and finishing off some projects around on the North First Avenue, Garrett Way section, and then Wingate and Flamingo area.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Justin, which direction does the water flow under the Center Street underpass, east or west?
Both directions.
It flows both directions?
Yeah,
Nothing's
our
ever
pipes
simple.
typically don't have directional with, their distribution piping. And so based on the demand and need, they'll flow any direction.
So
based on-
where's the well that supplies that then?
Most of the wells are located on the
interconnected.
east side. And
On
so
the east side, okay.
there's limited infrastructure that crosses under the railroad tracks, and that's a critical line for a conveyance between the east and the west side. Some of our storage facilities are on the west side, and so depending on need and demand, it's either coming off of our hill and storage tanks, or it's being pumped across from the nearest well.
Interesting. Thank you.
Some of the objectives and outcomes for FY25, we're looking to complete well 22. High Country Tank, we're looking to bid that project later this fall, early winter. And Barton Booster upgrades, this will be an in-house project. We're currently in the process of purchasing material and replacement and building an addition to that building that will house pressure tanks and deal with some of the transient waves that we can experience based on water hammer and other things with the large pumping facility. Satterfield well, we presented on that earlier. We're moving forward and developing a scope with our engineer on that, and we'll bring that forward to you guys in the next month or two. And then we still have a new municipal well planned. This is kind of a carryover just in case, but we've kind of stalled on this project just based on the need right now, because we were able to successfully drill these 2 replacement wells and double the volume in those, and so that kind of can kick that project down, and we'll see how the system reacts with those. Another large replacement project would be the cemetery water line. I know you've heard that through various presentations, but this will be a specialized project that we're looking to have bid out using pipe bursting technology and trenchless digging. We realize that that's a very sensitive site with people coming to view their loved ones and whatnot. The last thing you want to hear is excavation equipment, large heavy equipment during processions and other things like that. And so this will be a project we're looking to do during the winter months. We're currently in the design process and preparing bid documents on that will utilize that. And it actually uses, there's several entry and exit pits along the way, and those might be, every 500 feet that you're basically entering a kind of a mole or a bursting head and pulling that through the existing pipe and basically filleting that pipe open and pulling a new pipe in behind it. Wow. And so it's a great technology. We view this as the perfect application because most of this feed that goes through the cemetery is for irrigation purposes. And so we can do that during the off months of demand. So. And then, of course, our ongoing replacement projects and goals of replacing about 1.5 to 2 miles of pipe annually through various sections and neighborhoods.
Water personnel and salary and benefits, we've got a slight change here. With our seasonal employees, we kind of followed the model with WPC and streets, eliminating our seasonal employees and going to full-time employees. So we did a restructure this year. We reduced our seasonal employees and gained 2 full-time employees, changing our total headcount there.
Quick question.
Yes.
Well, I know water usage goes up in the summer for lawn maintenance, gardening, etc. Does your workload change drastically between seasons for your department?
It can, yeah. As far as overall maintenance and just day-to-day activities, not so much.
Okay.
You know, we kind of shift some of our winter maintenance goes to replacing pumps, motors, general maintenance that we can work on some of our facilities outside of the high demand periods.
Okay.
And then, of course, we're dealing with different conditions. You know, there's colder temperatures, there's higher brake loads, there's, you know, the stresses and strains of seasonal conditions kind of change some of the overall maintenance. During our summer months, you know, we're more into proactive maintenance.
Okay.
Where we're replacing water lines, we're flushing our system, we're going through and you know, evaluating old service lines that need replaced and trying to get ahead of in advance of, you know, of some of those reactive type maintenance situations. And so, you know, we're doing leak detection kind of constantly throughout the year, and, you know.
Okay, thanks.
So we have a little over $4,000 that we're requesting to adjust some of our overtime and call-out expenses for one of our divisions. This is in our pumping and operations division. We've noticed some changes in that just due to support of some of the construction activities that are occurring throughout town. And so that's placing a higher demand on that staff. We're having lines hit, we're having to come out and flush, rechlorinate, make sure everything's meeting those regulatory standards. And so that's just a slight adjustment to our 4-year average. Water revenue.
Justin, we've got a question real quick.
Could you go back, please? Could you explain the second line there? It looks like you got 100% savings.
Yeah, so that's our seasonal employees. So that's a shift from that. So we'll no longer have a line item for seasonal employees.
So where were you shifting that to then?
So that's being shifted to just regular salaries. This table only displays any additional benefits such as overtime.
Okay.
That was the 4 seasonals that they converted into 2 full-times.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Water revenue, so based on our 5-year rate study, we're looking at a 4% within water. That's for the first 2 years of the rate study plan. That's to adjust to some of the higher front-end projects that we're experiencing as far as capital. Capital is really kind of one of the larger costs there. We also have a separate fund, our Fund 37, which is our capacity fees, and that reflection is kind of based on growth and based on the recommended fee increases for that. As for expenditures and expenses, this is just kind of a graph or a table outlining the over-under of expenses of the 3%. As you can see, our largest cost increase is mainly with the capital. These are multi-year projects. They're kind of hard to capture and budget for in 1 year. And so really until those projects go on,
we don't get a real feel for how much is going to be expended year to year on some of those. So. Some of our large capital projects and capital needs are really with vehicles, heavy equipment, facilities. As you can see, that fluctuates year over year. We did have some large expenses this year that we appreciate the supporting and funding that you've given us to replace our valve truck. That was a large expense. But overall, the ask for FY 2025 is down. Things that we have built in there, we have 4 light vehicles or pickup trucks and service trucks, a plumbing van, and then a loader replacement. We're also asking for about $65,000 that would fund a valve insertion machine that would work with that valve truck. What that allows us to do is similar to making a live tap for new development. This allows us to cut in a valve in a line without depressurizing the system. So we get into various neighborhoods and pressure zones where you may have one feed into that neighborhood that's somewhat critical and serves 200 homes, and you have to schedule around some of that with shutdowns. There's also risk as far as anytime you cut in, there's potential for contaminants to enter into the system at those locations, and so this kind of alleviates that. We're able to do that under a pressurized situation where you've got reduced risk, and customer outage would be basically eliminated. Facilities, as we've kind of discussed, those are on the previous one, so that's our kind of higher cost there. And then pipeline replacement, that's with a contractor bid project for the cemetery line as well as our internal operations. As far as proposed fee increases, this just kind of shows the current year model as well as what's being proposed in FY25. As you can see, to the right of the slide with the graph bars, we're just below middle, kind of middle of the road, but the good news, we did slide back one. Blackfoot leaped ahead of us this year. They had some higher costs within their facilities that are driving things up, but overall, we're looking at a increase for median customer. The way that would affect on their bill of about 6,000 gallons would be $1.25, $15 a year.
Is Rexburg metered?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Idaho Falls is not metered.
There's kind of some differences here between Meridian and Rexburg, where they have secondary systems with irrigation and canal companies and things like that, and so their demand costs, during the peak months is far different than what we experience.
I see. Okay, super. Any other questions for Justin? Perfect. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, sir.
Then we'll move to utility billing.
Right. Well, thank you, Mayor and City Council, for your time being here today. I'm Cindy Robbins, the Utility Billing Director. I need to hit that enter key, huh? Okay. Yeah, I'll go to that one. sorry. This one? Next slide is, okay, we're out of order. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is my favorite slide because this is the one where I get to brag about the wonderful staff I have and the outputs and what they accomplish. We don't have projects, so a lot of this is what we spend our days doing and things. So we receipted over 34.9 million, and we do that with such a high accuracy. We do have to get the money to the right accounts and all that, so I'm always very proud of that. The breakdown on that, 15.4 million is processed with cash and checks. That's all manual right there. 10.9 million is processed with bank draft and bill pay. The 8.6 million is processed with our third-party vendor, Paymentus. And that one's tough because that one can come online or they are called in or at the window with the credit cards. So not. Our staff is, and I didn't do it, we have 12, 1 exempt and 11 that are hourly. We've been at that same staffing level since 2015. The meter reading side, we have over 19,000 meters that we read and maintain each month. Approximately 2,000 work orders are issued by our billing specialists, and those are for leak checks, rechecks, new services, old services. Those 2,000 work orders do not include any of our shutoffs. The staffing, that is the side that is easier to create numbers and you can see what they do. We also gather a lot of information. We process the information to get all the bills out. We're reviewing and things. So that one's a harder number. I mean, we got 19,000 accounts. Basically, we have 4 people handling one cycle. We have 4 cycles, so about 5,000 accounts that they manage each time. Any questions?
Yes, we have a question here. Councilmember Paulson.
Have you noticed any trend of people paying online versus cash or checks? Because I'm surprised that bank draft and bill pay is so much lower than like physical, you know?
A lot of people, and especially it's a generation thing, a lot of people don't trust that interaction between the banks and us. They still feel like some way we can see their accounts, we can get into their accounts. So a lot of the older generation, they are our check writers and our cash payers. That's what they like, and a lot of them still like to come down to, it's a social visit with them. The staff is very good at knowing their names and their dogs' names, and of course we do have the treats for the dogs, suckers for the kids. We encourage them to come and visit with us. And so, but yes, I'm with you. It would be very nice to get more of that.
Thank you.
It's surprising to a younger generation because we're used to checks. They're not.
Yes, right?
So,
Just auto pay for me. So
auto pay. They're
One
used
of
to
the
that auto
things-
pay. They trust all that stuff, but we don't. So
You know, you can have
4 years.
you can have good things that they're nice. With bank draft, the problem is if anybody lives paycheck to paycheck, as most, you don't get to choose the day that the bank draft comes out. It's the day that that bill is due. And so that makes it difficult for people who paid once a month and everything. Bill pay, they can go into their own bank and they can choose a date, whether people know that or not. So we try to get that information out as much as we can to help them.
Councilmember Mansfield, did you have a question?
I did. Your department is funded by enterprise funds?
Yes.
Is it a 50-50 split between WPC and water?
It is not.
Or I guess sanitation as well. So what's
Right.
your split?
We're 40% is water.
Okay.
27 is the sanitation, and 33 is WPC.
Okay.
And yes, I was going to mention that because I didn't do a revenue slide, so yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You asked about questions, so that.
No,
okay,
you're
go ahead
fine,
then.
and thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Yes, we are not a tax fund, so we are supported by the enterprise funds and fees, departmental fees that we charge. That's
Can
where
you
all
s-
of our revenue comes.
Can you just repeat that percentage breakdown? 40% was water and
33 is
is-
from WPC, and
And
27 is sanitation. Does that come up
sanitation.
to 100 there?
I think, yeah.
Close.
I'm not off the top of my head there, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this next slide, thank you. So in staying fashion, how I like to keep things interesting for you guys, I'm going to do my best with this slide because it contradicts my next slide. How's that? So, I like to keep things best up for you. So my salaries and benefits do show being down. We'll wait for the real numbers on that one. I did have a retiree. I did have someone else leave, but everybody in my department is up for a step increase. So that's kind of a weird one. Operations shows being up 15%. My numbers I had that I worked with, I believe that number should be closer to 376,000, mainly because I don't have projects. And so a lot of things I can maintain. The only things that really add to our budget each year is if we need to replace our reading equipment, we need our pickups. So I was able to really keep this budget quite flat. And then in the budget, I had 2 pickups last year because we were still waiting for one to come. So I had a higher amount in my pickup line, so I took that back out since we were able to receive our pickups. And so I reduced our budget by $27,000. And that's where that next slide comes in, saying that I reduced the budget by $27,000. So there's that contradiction thing. So we do really well, like I says, with our maintaining our costs. Our operating and maintenance is our maintenance agreements, a lot of our postage, envelopes, stuff that is just stays the same every year. So, and then any questions on that for me? Okay, the last one I have is just, we talk about the, that's where I was put that, we reduced by 27,000 personnel numbers. So I still feel that's a good number for you guys to know that I reduced the budget and we're looking pretty good. And the last one's just our mission value statement. We encourage communication, just if we can't help anybody, if we don't know what they're experiencing or going through. So that's something that we really strive to have our customers call us, talk to us, email us. So, and that's it. So any questions?
Questions, council? No?
Okay.
Looks good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jean.
Yep. Then we're moving to capital contingency, Gene.
We take like a week break.
A week? Do you mean like days long or just kind of a week break?
No.
Weak as in not strong.
Not strong.
So, good morning, council, honorable mayor, Gene Hill Finance Department. This should be really quick. So basically right now, and again, I just want to point out one thing. Again, this is a balance sheet item, right? So it changes based on what we use and what we do. But right now, as of May 24, 31, the total balance is 2.2 million. We're recommending that we add 750,000 for the savings for Fund 28, or excuse me, Fund 78, because it is, a place where we get capital. It's a savings account. And so we think it's really important that we constantly fund that. We need to get a new air conditioner, right? Things like that. So we want to make sure we have funds set aside to take care of that. Questions?
I'm struggling with the math there, Gene.
Oh, I can't see it, sorry.
Yeah. Struggling with
750, oh, I did, the total not, oh, it's missing a 9, it should, crap, hang on. Yeah, I got it, it should be 9, yeah, okay. Yes, math's wrong. I'll fix it and send it to you.
I thought it was new math.
Well, it is.
It's new math. That's what we've got.
Sorry about that.
So should it be 3 million? Is that what it should have been?
Well, it should be
2.9.
7.5.
No, because it's 271. So
That should be
it should be
three-
30
yeah, 3 something.
21896.
Just missing the carryover,
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. In addition, we haven't covered this in past years, But the emergency repair fund, this Fund 16 on the next slide, again, the balance 399, 400K, call it. We thought it would be worth adding 250K to this, again, to try and build up for those emergencies that we just don't know about. And so.
For what department?
That's basically the mayor's discretion.
This is for all departments. For example, we ran into this year parks. We had 3 different roofs, a staircase and stuff. That it was an emergency. We didn't have that. We don't have an emergency fund for like fire department and that staircase behind the fire department, Station 1 and things. And so we have emergencies that come up, and we've just never really had an emergency fund there that we've been able to look at and bring to you and say, we've got this emergency. This is where the money's coming from. We always have to get together and say, okay, where are we going to pull the money from? And
is this one of those we need to formally transfer funds between departments? Or is it just?
Well, it is in a fund, so we'd have to do it right at the, whenever we do an amendment, we would have to do that. But it also gives, I think, the mayor the discretion, because again, Fund 78 is always, it's kind of been combined, right? So we're trying to separate it out, where Fund 78 is more of a savings for capital projects. Fund 16 becomes an emergency fund. That we can access that capital and use it where it's needed. Does that make sense?
So, just to clarify, Fund 78 then is capital contingency but non-emergency?
That's the idea, is again, capital savings. You know that you're gonna have to, like, in the general fund, you know, we've set this aside where they know that they need a new fire truck, or finance needs whatever, you know, a computer system. We know that that's gonna happen in 5 years. So we start accumulating the money and setting it aside, versus in Fund 16, where we just don't know
like
what's
a roof
coming.
caves in.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, the trees.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, that's a great example of trees in the cemetery and throughout our parks. We had to get help, you know, private individuals' help. We didn't really have money where to pull that money from, and that's something that would have come from this emergency repair. It gives us the ability to move without, you know, quicker than stuff, so. But it could go either way. We felt like this was, or at least I felt like this was kind of a more transparent way for people to see what we've got for emergencies if we need it, and so.
Questions?
Okay.
So we're adjourned now?
No, you still have agenda item 8. Finance Department, what are you trying to get out of that for?
Oh, I'm trying to get out of big time. No. So again, Gene Hill, Finance Department of City of Pocatello. Here's some important projects that, you know, we completed the audit for 22, right? Audit for 23 is on track. You'll see that it's gone from being called extra, you know, from a CAFR to an AFR, new acronym. And also this is where we've, you know, I asked for the admin last year so that we could help do our own stuff in-house. And you'll see a whole new look and feel to these reports. I know that finance is boring to begin with, but trying to just be able to tell the story better and try and get along with the new city branding once that's done, that we'll be able to brand everywhere we can. We also had to go through complete the RFP for a new auditor as required. We ended up with the same auditor, but according to HUD, we were supposed to do that every 3 to 5 years, so that's completed. New things we're gonna do for this coming year is go live with Central Square, which is, or excuse me, with the Finance Enterprise, which is the same company. The savings on this, I think, are gonna be huge as far as time. Just, again, an example. If you want a custom report and we need to manipulate the data, you literally have to run the report, put it into a PDF file, run it into an Excel, an Excel conversion file, then get it into Excel, and then you've had data to, you've lost data and stuff like that. So then you have to recheck it. before you can actually get in to manipulate it. And you'd have to do the same thing even if you were going into a database. So at least with the new system, we can now go directly to an Excel and makes it easier for us to manipulate it. And it's also got some canned reports. So we hope to be able to get you, some desktop reporting so that you can look it up anytime you want. You know exactly where we're at all the time. And the public could do the same at some point in time. And I think it's really important too that we start doing a 5-year cash forecast. And the reason I'm saying this is we try to maximize the use of cash and everything that we're doing. If we can know exactly where, or as close as we can to when the cash is going to be spent, it allows us to match the investment side of that cash with it, so we can optimize earnings for the city on that idle cash. Sources of income, it's basically, it's admin fee and other, which is really something that the city has not done, not good or bad, but I don't think we've managed like taking discounts that we could, paying vendors. Things of, do you allow it to go out 60 days? Do you pay it in advance? Just different things that we can do to improve. And again, it's just one of those things that we're looking at to, again, bring in more cash, make some savings.
We've got a question here.
Hi, Gene. Could you explain your source of income administrative support?
Yes.
What that is?
So that's basically where, like with HR, legal, where those, we have to fund, we're a service organization. So it's where we're funded from the other departments. And that's the source of income.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Our expenditures, again, personnel is the unknown, right? Until we have what our benefits, basically until we know what the cost of the health insurance is going to be. It's just an unknown. We're just kind of, we'll get that. Heather's doing a great job. We'll get that done. And then operating costs, and then our interfund, and then our total. Any questions?
Council questions? Okay, doesn't look like it. Thank you very much, Gene.
Thank you for your time. This has been a long week. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Council, for being here. Looks like we've got a little bit of a break until, I was a little worried we'd be here until 5 o'clock and then we'll go right into our meeting. And so it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a break. So thank you. With that, we are adjourned and we will see you this evening.